So as we saw in the news recently, we just had some tornadoes, I guess, in Ohio or Indiana. I'm not really sure. I don't get the news, so it's hard for me to keep up with this stuff. But I do know there was a tornado that hurt some people and killed some people. And so I kind of like to do these. Let's kind of get ready for these season changes videos every now and then. But I thought I'd do something a little different today. Today I thought I'd do a different comparison type of video on how preppers tell you how to prepare for this season, and how I'll tell you how to deal with this season. There's a stark contrast, and of course we really should be listening to the preppers because they're the experts in all this. So let's get started. Hello, my name is Jesus, and I'm here to tell you today that we're coming up on spring season, and that means we're going to have tornadoes and hurricanes. Now, we've been told by the CIA, the NSA, the TSA, the ABC, the FBI, and Central Biology Corps that this is going to be the worst tornado hurricane season of all times. That's right. We're going to have hurricanes that are going to last 16 months. Tornadoes will rip through every state, every county, every town in the United States. We're going to be out of electric for 17 years. That's right, 17 years. So we better prepare today. So right here, what we have is the ultimate machine that will keep you living forever. You will never die with this machine. This is the Champion 2500 watt inverter generator. This baby will power your entire city. All you need is one propane tank. Right here, just a little propane tank. You can get these at the Dollar General. Now, the fascinating thing about that is that propane tank will last 30 hours on this baby, powering your entire city. So, if you really break that down mathematically, this will last 13 years on one propane tank. So just get yourself two, and you'll make it through this 17-year power outage. Not a problem. So all you got to do is hook this up, pull the cord a couple times, and you're up and running. Click the link below for all the information and to purchase one. Now, a little disclaimer, I do get a little bit of money from this, so make sure you get it from my link. Okay, so that's how the preppers will tell you how to prep, and that is just fantastic information. Now, what they didn't tell you is this thing's a little pricey. Last year, they dropped the price down to $450, and I told my subscribers, get on Amazon now. I think everybody bought one. These things range, I think, around $700. So they're not exactly the greatest thing in the world to buy. Now, you can go to Tractor Supply or someplace like that, and you can get a Champion that is not dual fuel. Well, you can actually get on Amazon too, and they're not dual fuel. They're a lot cheaper. You'd be able to run it off gas. I like the dual fuel because as much as I run mine, I don't want to have to take the gasoline out of it every time I want to put it on standby for a couple weeks. Also, I'm trying to save money. If you're in an emergency situation, you're probably not trying to save money. You're just trying to get through it. So this, you can run it off gasoline, but if gasoline prices are really high and you can find cheaper propane, then it's better to run propane. That's how I do it. But it does produce more power with gasoline than it does propane. But I do like it. But that's not how we're going to prepare for this season. If you don't have the kind of money to go out and invest in all these prepping things that people tell you about, you really should look at doing things more economically. Now, of course, Carolyn and I live off solar panels. And the only problem with solar panels is, like the other day, they didn't say a word about bad weather coming through. Not a word. And I guess it was maybe 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. The sun was just starting to peak up, and it was starting raining. And I heard hail in that. Now, typically, if I know it's going to hail, I turn all my solar panels upside down, stack them on top of each other, put a piece of metal on top of it. That way, when the hail hits, it won't break my solar panels. But if that hail would have been any larger the other day, it would have broke my solar panels. So I need a backup. And like I said, I do have a generator. I also have a smaller generator, little Power Smart generator. It's inverter technology also. But again, it's pretty pricey. The little inverter generator is a little bit more economical. I think it was $2.99, but it can't really power that much. It can't power your freezer, where this one can power your freezer. But there are other options out there, and I've showed this before, and it's probably your best option, but your car can be a generator. What I have here is an inverter. You can buy these off Amazon, or you go to Walmart. This one's a little 1,000-watt inverter, and I have one identical to it running my house right now. The only difference between the two is that is a pure sine wave, and this is a modified sine wave. And the difference between modified and pure means it's clean energy. You can run all your sensitive electronics off of it. If you had a TV that was sensitive. But modified is dirty energy. And it used to be that the modified inverters were a little bit more cheap than pure sine wave, but they're about the same price now, so it really doesn't make any difference. But when they were more expensive, I bought these. And this, like I said, is 1,000 watts. This can run my entire house. Now, I don't have a lot on my house, so when I say that, it'll power your entire house. I mean a freezer. We have an incubator on it right now, 2 cell phones, a laptop, and a little tablet, which is actually kind of amazing they can power that much. So what an inverter does is it changes DC electricity into AC electricity. So your car battery is DC electricity, 12 volts. Your house is AC electricity, 110 volts. Now the voltage, I don't want to get into that, but the AC DC thing is what is so critical with this. You can literally change your battery, your car, into a generator using this. Now, I said this is inverter technology generator over here. So it's the same principle. It's changing DC electricity into AC electricity. I don't want to get into the science of it, but as your engine on this, it has magnets and copper and spinnings creating electricity, DC electricity. And then it sends it through an inverter and makes AC. There's a lot more to that than what I've just stated, but that is a very simplistic view of how that works. So what this does is the same thing, except it's not making its own energy, it's taking energy from the battery. So the battery would die pretty quickly if you were to use this like I have it right now. So the power goes out, it's only going to be out for a few hours, maybe a couple days. Now, admittedly, there are storms sometimes that knock out the power for several weeks. One time, my grandmother lost her electricity for 2 weeks. It can happen, and she wasn't prepared at all. She lost, I think, 2, maybe 3 freezerfuls of meat. But this would save your freezer. This would keep you from losing your freezer if you're going to be out of electricity for, you know, a week at most. If you start getting into 2-week electricity, like down in Hurricane Valley down there in Florida, generators are probably a better bet. But like I said, even at that, you could go get a regular generator from Tractor Supply. This will last about 11 hours on a tank of gas or 30 hours on one of those small propanes. So if you ran it smart and just ran it when you needed it, so let's say 3 times a day, you turn it on, you let the freezer chill back down, and then shut it all off. Let that freezer hold that temperature for 3 or 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, turn it back on, and then shut it off. But you can treat this the same way. If keep your gas full, if you know you're going to have a storm, start your vehicle, make sure the vehicle's outside. Somebody's going to say, well, what about carbon monoxide? You can't have it in your garage. Well, of course you can't have it in your garage, but you start the engine outside and you hook the positive, the red wire, to the positive of the battery, the black wire to the black wire of the battery, the negative. And then you just turn it on. Now, depending on the one you have, they all work a little bit differently, but not too much. And now it's flashing how many volts are on it, which is a little low. It's 12.0, but that's beside the point. That's not important. Then you can plug your freezer into it. 1,000 watts should run a small freezer. You get much bigger than that, you're probably going to want to go up to a 2,000 watt. I have both. I have a 1,000 watt and a 2,000 watt. The 1,000 watt runs the house normally, but the 2,000 watt runs my well pump Sometimes we'll hook a coffee maker up to it. So 1,000 watt isn't going to do a lot of work. It probably wouldn't even run a vacuum cleaner. You definitely couldn't run a vacuum cleaner and a freezer at the same time on 1,000 watt. I'm not telling you to go out and buy a 2,000 watt, but if you're concerned that you're going to have multiple items on it, you may want to get a 2,000 watt. Now, the way you figure out wattage is you go to the back of your freezer, you look at your freezer, you have 110 volts going into the freezer. If you're in the house, you have 110 volts in the United States. And then on it, it'll say amps somewhere. Somewhere on the back or on the cord, you'll see the amps. So you take 110 volts times the amps. So let's say it's 1 amp. That means you got 110 watts. Now on startup, there is a surge of power on startup. I've never had a problem with 1,000 watts handling that surge. Usually it can get up there pretty high. The startup on my freezer is 800 watts. So for a fraction of a second, maybe a second, it shoots up to 800 watts on startup and then comes back down to 110. So you start it up, you run an extension cord in your house, you run this for a couple hours until your freezer shuts off, then shut everything down. And then a few hours later, you come back and do the same thing. And you do that for a week or so. Yeah, you're gonna use a lot of gas. This is not a cheap thing, but it's gonna save your meat. And then, so you can run a nice little power tool like that. And you can see, I didn't cheat or anything. The cord is running from the inverter to the saw. And if we look, it's pulling the power right now, so it says 11.8. If we look, there's it was pulling 110 watts. So this is a good option, but make sure your car's running, otherwise your battery will die pretty quickly. I know that a lot of people think that they have to be prepared for the end of time, but the reality is you're probably more likely that you're gonna have a bad storm come through, tornado come through, knock out power lines, hurricane come through, and so you're gonna need something to get you through it so you don't lose your meat like my grandmother did. Don't get me wrong, this is a heck of an option, but it depends on your budget. You know, I see these preppers telling you to buy a solar generator all the time, and you know, those things can be up to thousands of dollars to buy a solar generator. And the thing is when it dies, it's a battery. A solar generator is nothing but a battery unless you have a solar panel on it. When the battery dies, that's all the electric you have. You can get enough gasoline. If you know a storm's going to come, you can mathematically calculate how much gasoline you're going to need to run a generator. You can mathematically calculate how much you're going to need to run your truck to power this thing. So you get yourself a few tanks of gas, a few gallons of gas, and ride the storm. It is doable. And I've done these things before. Well, obviously I live off grid, so it's second nature to me. I don't even think about it anymore. I don't even think about electricity. If the power goes out, I mean. Of course, I think about electricity all the time because I gotta make sure that I have enough. This just doesn't have to be overly expensive. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to a video where I was talking about the well. So if I can inspire you to be ready for minor issues when you live in your dreams. Thanks for watching.